In 1912, the world was given the most highly anticipated cruise ship, the Titanic. In a few short weeks, we will be given the world's largest cruise ship, the Icon of the Seas. Now, while there are some obvious differences between those two ships, there are also some interesting similarities. Hey everybody, what is up? This is Jordan from JJ Cruise. Thank you so much for coming into the channel today. Today we're going to look at the differences and similarities between the Titanic and the Icon of the Seas. Two monster ships for their time, and what are some of the interesting similarities that have not changed in the cruise industry over the last century. Now, before we get into that, I do just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Of course, this is a channel that is all things cruise travel. If you enjoy cruising and cruise ships as much as I do and Jared does, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. As I stated, there are some obvious differences between these two ships. And I want to start by saying specifically in safety. There are many new things that have evolved and developed over the last 100+ years in the safety of maritime law. This video is just intended to be fun for us to look at two of these awesome ships and notate some of the interesting similarities and differences. Let's start off by talking about the size. Now, we know that the Icon of the Seas is the world's largest cruise ship. It will be the biggest ship to ever sail the waters from a cruise ship perspective. The cruise ship itself is 250,800 gross tons. In comparison, when the Titanic came out, it was 46,300 gross tons. That is an increase in size by more than 80%. The Icon can hold 9,950 people. Now that is crew and guest combined. The Titanic could hold 3,327 people. So something that I find very interesting is even though the size is more than 5 times larger, the guest and crew capacity is actually only about 3 times larger. That just goes to show how many people they were packing in the Titanic. Now, if you know anything about the class system in the Titanic, there was different classes on different levels of the ship. The lowest level was where the third class passengers were, and they really did just pack people in those lower decks and kind of stuff people in shared cabins on bunk beds. So this kind of makes sense. Those areas of the ships were packed to the max and not really luxurious staterooms like we see even with the inside staterooms on the Oasis class or the Icon of the Seas. Let's talk about lifeboats. Lifeboats are a very important part of the maritime industry. Here is a very interesting number. The Titanic had 20 lifeboats. Icon of the Seas will only have 17 lifeboats. That number initially might freak you out a little bit or make you feel a little unsafe, but just rest assured knowing that in the Titanic lifeboats, they could only fit about 50 people. In the Icon lifeboats, you can fit about 500. Now, for those of you that don't know, on modern day cruise ships, there are more than just lifeboats that provide life-saving measures to get off of a ship in case of emergencies. There's also inflatable rafts and other things that they have to get the majority of the people off of the ship in case there is ever, God forbid, an emergency where the ship is going down. Let's talk about dining venues. On the Titanic, there was a total of 4 dining venues. On the Icon of the Seas, there will be more than 20. So that does kind of go in line with the 5 times larger. That is about exactly 5 times larger in the amount of food places that you can eat on the ships. Did you know that there were elevators on the Titanic? There were, in fact, 4 elevators for passengers to use. In comparison to Icon of the Seas, there will be 20 elevators. Now, there will also be escalators on 3 of the decks on Icon of the Seas. Safe to say there was no escalators on the Titanic. The Titanic was fully equipped with a spa or a Turkish bath, and there will also be a spa on the Icon of the Seas. So those are things over the last 100 years that have not changed. The luxurious feeling of going to the spa, sitting in a Turkish bath or a steam room has kind of carried on throughout the years as a cruise tradition. Of course, cruising has always been this form of luxury travel, so having a spa on board does just make sense. Here's one of the most interesting comparison, the sports court. Now, both of these ships did have or do have a sports court. The Titanic, though, specifically had a court for squash. And in the same way, the Icon of the Seas will specifically have courts for pickleball. I find it kind of funny that over the years, we haven't come up with new and inventive ways to call these different sports games that we play. Squash was played in 1912. Pickleball is being played in 2024. While both of these games are played with a racket and a ball, they are a little bit different. Squash, you actually play off of the wall, versus pickleball, you play over a net. Another interesting comparison of both of these ships is that they both come from Europe. Obviously, Titanic was on its way from the northern side of Europe. Icon made its way across the Atlantic, stopped in Puerto Rico for final checks before making its way over to Florida. But Europe to the United States was the initial trajectory for both of these cruise ships. There are a lot of other things that we could dive into a lot deeper here in comparing the Icon of the Seas to the Titanic. Let me know what you think of the comparison of these two ships. Are you surprised by any of the numbers? For me personally, the number of lifeboats actually shocked me, but then once I saw the passenger count of each lifeboat, it did make me feel a little bit better. Keep an eye on the channel because we're going to continue to do some of these first looks of Icon of the Seas throughout the month. And of course, Jared and I will be on the maiden voyage of Icon of the Seas. So you'll want to look for us there. We'll be doing lives, ship tours, reviews, everything that you could possibly imagine about Icon of the Seas. We will be covering towards the end of January on that maiden voyage. Let me know in the comments what you think of the comparison between Icon of the Seas and Titanic. Hit the subscribe button, that like button, and until next time, see ya.